Okay, welcome. I'm really pleased to introduce everybody who knows me to my good friend, Melanie Moore. Hi, Melanie.
Hello, Steve. Thanks for having me. Steve Down Under.
And Melanie, you are a big vision coach from the UK. Where are you in the UK?
I'm just about 20 miles north of London in a place called St. Albans.
Okay,
So, yeah.
so we're here. I'm down here in Perth, Western Australia.
Mm.
Pretty cool here, which is the middle of winter. Probably similar
Yeah.
to what it's like in the UK right now, in the middle of summer.
Yeah, well, we are supposed to be in summer, and but yeah, probably about 20 degrees or so at the moment.
Yeah.
And apparently a heat wave is on its way. So,
But you call it a heat wave when it's like 25 degrees, right?
basically, and then we then moan when it gets to about 27, and we just can't cope with it. And
All right. Well, we joked before we started, everyone, that we'd end up talking about the weather, but actually, we want to talk to you about tapping. We want to talk to you about using tapping to achieve your goals. We want to talk to you about the event that we're going to be doing together, where we'd love to invite you to, which is Tapping Into Your Big Vision Live, which really was your idea, wasn't it, Melanie?
It was, yeah. So I do weekly tapping with Jaqui Crooks, who's another mutual friend of ours, and Jackie's EFT master. And I just kind of had this idea, wouldn't it be great to do a tapping event, a personal development event, but with tapping at the core to help people to go after their big goals and dreams. But it's kind of like a journey through time. And I wanted to, and again, with Jackie's help, we kind of thought, who are the best tappers with different skill sets who can bring their expertise to the table, because we all have such different styles and ways of working. And I just think it's great to have this blend of different people's energies. So yeah, really looking forward to it.
So let's talk about what you do, and because there's a lot of parallels in what all of us do, actually. Obviously, we're all using tapping, and we're all using tapping to help people to overcome whatever's blocking them and to be able to make changes in their life, and to be able to create a vision for something different and to be able to realize that vision. And as you know, I like to focus on that being based on values. Tell me about how you got into doing vision work, how you got into tapping, and then to make this useful for people, what are the things that really people need to do if they want to create their big vision and be able to make it happen?
Yeah, so, I started off life as a journalist. I did a journalism degree at university. I worked at the BBC. And then I moved into the corporate world doing recruitment headhunting, which is a million miles away from what I do now. But I'd always had interest in holistic therapies, alternative healing, quite kind of spiritual outlook on life, kind of probably through my mum and her Buddhist values. My mum's from Thailand. And then I guess things kind of changed for me, which I think often do for a lot of women, is when I got pregnant and had children. And I was kind of doing all these therapies and practices myself. And I thought, actually, my big vision then was to leave my corporate career and stay at home and raise my children. However, I also knew that I needed to be busy. I wanted to have my own business, but something that I could do around the children. And so I trained as a reflexologist, a Reiki practitioner. And I did that for a couple of years until I discovered tapping. Funnily enough, I discovered it during my training as a reflexologist, used it on myself. And I think a lot of us do. We discover it, think, wow, this really works. And then you kind of think, I want to
start talking about that. You just kind of light up a little bit. It's interesting. I always watch people and see what it is that makes them, what creates the spark. So when you start talking about how you use it on yourself. So what did you do then? What was it that gives you that spark when you talk about that?
Well, I think it's to discover that there was this thing literally at your fingertips that you could heal yourself. And I use it firstly to heal kind of hay fever. And I say heal, to begin with, it was temporary relief, but with ongoing practice, I was also using it to literally heal migraines and headaches as well. And it stopped me from going to the medicine cupboard. And obviously I just became fascinated with it. I was in testing it out, people like my very skeptical brother, skeptical friends, and isn't it just
we all
great?
get a bit evangelical when we learn tapping and we get some results with it, and we're like, everybody has to do this. Yeah
Totally. And that's the best thing, I think, when skeptical people do, like, oh my god, yeah, my headache's gone. Well, how did that just work? And of course, then I had to go and train in it. And I was trained by Tamara and Peter, her husband, who Tamara's actually speaker at one of our at the event. And yeah, so I had this holistic therapy practice where I decided to specialize in working with pregnant women on their pregnancy journey from preconception right through to childbirth. But on this side, I was doing vision board workshops, they were kind of unrelated, really, because I had this big interest and passion in personal development. You know, people like Jack Canfield and Wayne Dyer. I was reading their books. Then I'd read The Secret. There was this chapter on creating vision boards. Then I thought, wouldn't it be fun to do vision board workshops? So they literally started life in my home with a handful of people, and then they grew. I hired hotels, and then I was, hired by corporate companies to do these big vision board workshops. And
so isn't that interesting? Like sorry, I'm bugging
no.
but it's like you well, okay, you started in journalism, all right, and obviously moved out of that for some reason, went into corporate, and then you've kind of come out, and then you've kind of come back into that world, or you've incorporated that.
Totally.
Yeah.
And that's why I do believe that, everything that happens in our lives happen for a reason. We may not know that at the time. You may think, God, what am I doing stuck in this job or whatever? And actually there are so many skills, even people you meet along the way. A lot of it does end up being full circle stuff. And then you can think, that's why I spent a year doing that job, or that's why I did that. I think with the whole journalism thing, I do have a very inquisitive mind. I like to question things, find answers. And I think the whole thing with healing and tapping, it's so alternative and so kind of like a bit bonkers, really, that it is.
Well,
it is.
Some of us have been working very hard on making it not that way. And
no, it's not. But how it appears to others, and yeah. So, but then I had this light bulb moment, because I was really looking at things that limiting beliefs and blocks that stop us from taking action to make the stuff happen. Because you can visualize, you can manifest, you can even tap all you want, but unless you then take the action, you're not really going to get your results. So that's how tapping into your big vision was born. It was through the marriage of EFT and visualization and vision boards.
That's also one area where you and I are in 100% agreement that you need to take action, because there's a lot of people out there that are like, all you need to do is just, you just get in the right state and it'll all come to you. And, my research shows that the people who are taking action are lapping the field of the people that are not doing that. So it's kind of like putting it all together. You can have your vision, but that's ultimately got to translate into some kind of action.
Yeah. And I think the action has to also come from that place of alignment, coming from that, not even necessarily a feel-good place, but from that place of, I think, if you take action from a place of stress or overwhelm or fear, you're not going to get the same results if you take action from a place of alignment, of certainty, of belief, and just that flow of a quick round of tapping to get you to raise your state and vibration, then take action. So
well, I would say alignment in terms of your values, so that because your values are already very strong emotional drivers, as long as they're your true values, as long as they're your values and not someone else's values, and they're things that are really important to you. When it's important to you, then it makes it worth doing the work forward. And there is an energy for that. So there's an actual attraction to doing what's good for you and what's right for you. Just as I would say, that would be what allowed you to move from, you know, what you were doing to being able to be there for your kids and do that kind of stuff, which actually takes a bit of courage to do.
Totally. Yeah. So how did you get into this whole world of tapping, Steve?
Well, I never probably would have looked at tapping, I don't think, if I had not had a friend who's a lot more conservative than me, but he had developed his own business and I was starting to develop my own business. And so he was kind of mentoring me about this. And then he said to me one day, "Oh, what do you do with people with phobias?" And I'm like, "Well, I know a few techniques." And he's like, "Well, there's this new thing where you do this tapping on this body points." And I'm like, "What?" Anyway, he had been over to the US and he brought back videotapes. That's how long ago it was, videotapes, not even DVDs. And he said, "I'll loan them to you if you want." And so I watched these videotapes of Gary Craig doing his stuff.
I've seen the same tapes, I think.
Original,
Are they the ones of Gary Craig wearing a shell suit, like a tracksuit?
No, even before that.
Not. Okay, all right then, okay.
The original EFT program that he put together. And it included some work where he was working with Vietnam War veterans. And I was, all war veterans. I was working with Vietnam War veterans at the time, and I could see the results he was getting. And I thought, well, okay, I can see that works. That's fantastic. But can I use it? And then I tested out on my wife on her needle phobia. She was the first guinea pig. And it worked, she didn't want to do it after the first time because she's like, that looks really stupid. But she went and had the blood test and she didn't have any fear. And she said, "I've never been able to do that before." And she hasn't had a problem with needles ever since. And then I used it with a client and it just worked instantly on her trauma. And then I just started trying it on everything as Gary Craig recommended. And not long after that, my good mate Dave Lake and I were traveling over to the US to study with Gary, and we went to his workshop. And David got up on stage and got over his lifelong public speaking phobia.
Amazing.
And that was just a fantastic thing to see, to see him go from heart rate going and dry mouth. And then he's just himself on stage. He wasn't have to put on anything. He was just himself. He was joking around just like he does when you go out to dinner with him on stage,
Yeah. I think when you see those actual kind of physical evidence, and I guess the other thing for me, which I think is probably one of the greatest blessings that EFT's brought to my life, is the fact that my children have been the ones from the moment I started learning about tapping, they were the guinea pigs. Help them to get a good night's sleep, help them to, even if they were not feeling well, to use as a healing mechanism, to use affirmations that I'm going to be fine tomorrow, my body's healing, I'm a great kid, doing it before anxiety, sports day, dance exams, oh my goodness. And one of my, I wouldn't say it's my greatest achievement, but it's one of the greatest things I'm most grateful for, is using it to help my daughter overcome, some really severe OCD, which I think probably could have gone on to blight her life. And it took us about 18 months, but with daily tapping, I'd say she's probably 99% free from it now. I think she'll probably always have slight tendencies, but probably in a healthy way rather than in a unhealthy way. And it's just incredible because all the experts I was speaking to was just like, this is going to be a lifelong fear, that lifelong thing that she's just going to have to deal with. And I'm like, no, I'm not accepting that. It will be if I believe it will be.
Yeah. It's so great to be able to use it with your kids. I've used it with all my kids, like they're all adults now. And our oldest boy, Josh, who's 27, he was 3 years old when I first learned tapping, and he was the original born-again skeptic, He would be upset and I'd say, "Oh, let's do some tapping." And he'd say, "That won't work." And then I'd say, "Well, let's just do it anyway."
Yeah.
And it would work, And so it's really fantastic to be able to, I think, for them, because I have suffered so much anxiety in my life, to be able to help him to not have to suffer that same stuff. That to me is one of the best things about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as tappers, as practitioners, you know, using it with our own families and ourselves and our clients, I think we've all taken this, I guess, this newish therapy and made our own tweaks and adaptations and, you know, our own other healing styles. And I know you've got a psychology background, isn't it, Steve?
Well, I tell people I trained in psychology, but I want to assure you I have fully recovered.
Yeah. I don't think it was Brad and Jaqui are trained as hypnotherapists. So, yeah, you know, we all bring such different flavors to this incredible tool. So, yeah, I'd love to know more about intention tapping, Steve. And you know, yeah, because intention is one of my favorite words. I try to make it as much a part of my life, you know, for a day-to-day basis as possible, you know, setting intentions constantly. But yeah, tell me about intention tapping and what that's all about.
So this is something that I discovered when I was going through a hard time. I had, this is kind of like, seems to be when most of the good things happen to me is after, you know, after a difficult time. It's like we're searching for ways out. And I actually started I was trying to do distance running again. And I got up to doing some pretty decent distances. And then I got this heel spur and I just couldn't move at all. And, you know, I was in pain and I was suffering. And you know what it is when you get stopped and when you're feeling like, oh, you know, I'm frustrated and I can't move. And then it's like, well, yeah, not only is my, you know, my running not working, my business is not working, and you know, I'm not being a good enough father, and I'm not being a good enough husband, and everything's bad. And, you know, I was just really getting down on myself about everything. And so I started tapping, you know, and I'm doing tapping, you know, on all of it. And I'm using every technique I know. I'm using TRE, which is a shaking technique. I'm using logosynthesis, which is a technique created by Willem Lammers. It's a fantastic approach. I'm reading all the books and, you know, I'm like, you know, I'm just doing everything. And, you know, the tapping is helping me to see that I'm kind of stuck in a rut, only focused on my problems, and I need to start focusing on goals again. That's one of the challenges, that when you get overwhelmed, you can't see the wood for the trees, and it's all just problem, you know. So some of your energy has to go into what you want rather than just what you don't want. Anyway, I was also reading this book by my marketing coach. He'd done some work on getting unstuck, and he had studied with Byron Katie. And Byron Katie, I love her stuff, and she has a process she calls the work. And she has a book called Loving What Is. And I had read that book, but I picked it up again. And in that book, there's a statement that says, basically, it's not the thought, it's the attachment to the thought that causes the suffering. And I thought, yeah, it's the emotional attachment, you know. And when you do tapping, you can have the thought that triggered the emotion. And now when you do tapping, you have the thought and there's no emotion. And so it's not the thought. It's the fact that you've somehow got the emotion attached to the thought. And then it occurred to me, all right, well, tapping releases the emotional attachment. And I thought, well, what if you could just use intention? And so I formed the simple intention: I release all my emotional attachments to this problem. And I just went, you know, like when you do tapping and you have that great big sigh, or you have a great big yawn or something like that. And it was just instant. And then I thought, okay, well, that was interesting. And then I found another aspect of the problem, and I said, I release all my emotional attachments to this. And I went, and I thought, well, that was interesting again. And then I did it on another aspect, and I had the same thing. I had an instant shift, and that aspect moved, and then the next part of the problem came through. You know, like when you work with tapping and you're working through different aspects, but that sometimes takes a little while. This was just happening immediately. And then I realized I had this tightness in my chest, and I thought, yeah, okay, there's always a body thing going on, you know, like there's some kind of disturbance in body energy. And when you do tapping, that restores the energy flow. And then I had the same insight. What if I could just use intention? So I just formed the intention: I restore the right energy flow to my chest. Instant, big breath, big expansion of my chest. It was like, I'm clear. I'm feeling really clear. And then I thought, well, this can't be real. I'm thinking it, you know, I've convinced myself of this, you know, and so on. And, but it worked on everything that I used it on. And it was just going, boom, boom, boom. And it's like, okay, this is something different. And I went to my wife and I said, you know, I'm sorry, I'm getting distracted. Is that your little dog?
It is. And she's supposed to be with my son, meant to be looking after her. He's thought I've had enough of her and he's forgotten I'm having an interview. Don't worry, she interrupted my interview with Brad as well. She's just a bit attention seeking. This is the great
thing about, I don't have the dog here because I have an office separate from my home. But if I were at home, we have a little dog as well now. Anyway, it's nice that when they come in, actually. But anyway, I went to my wife and I said, I've been playing around with this thing. Could you just give it a try? And, you know, now she's used to this and now she says yes. And now she knows I'm not going to sell her some silly thing. And she instantly did a great big yawn, just like you do when you have a big release with tapping. And she's like, yeah, I feel differently. And the next morning I had a friend on Skype and he had an issue with his family. His family was going to have to go and see them. And he was, you know, really upset about it and really, you know, feeling contracted. And I just said, mate, just try this, you know, this intention statement that I've, you know, just discovered yesterday. And he's like, wow, he's like, that's really palpable. And he went and had this thing and he didn't have the same reaction. And so I thought, well, okay, that's 3 out of 3. And then I started, you know, discussing with friends and sharing it and trying it out. And it's now become a thing. And I'm still astounded by it. You know, I have things that I believed about my life that I no longer believe because of it, that I've completely released my attachments to. And this includes stuff that I've done lots and lots and lots of tapping on. So it's actually helped me to go to another level with the tapping that I do. And the, you know, the core statements that I came up with then, there's still a huge part of what I do. So I release all my emotional attachments to X, where X is the problem, the event, the memory, the belief, the thought, the person, whatever it is. And then if you have a disturbance in the body, I restore the right energy flow to whatever the area is that's disturbed. And you know what? It works without tapping and it works with tapping. And so when I combine it with tapping, I now call it intention tapping. You know, I originally called it intention-based energy process because it does, you know, uses intention to move energy and so on. But yeah.
That's just fantastic. And I love the use of the language. You know, one of the things that I'm kind of also known for is being the language police. And I really do pay attention to the words that we use. You know, you hear it just generally in public. Just yesterday, I was in town, we were trying to pay for a car park meter, and there was a man in front of me with his son, and it kept rejecting his coins. And he said to his son, well, this is just the beginning of a really bad day, isn't it? And you kind of think, and I just really kind of like, didn't say, no, it's not. But it's just, I don't know, it was just tripped off his tongue. I know he didn't really mean anything by it, but for some people, it really does become just a way of life, just using this limiting language. But I love this. This is very intentional use of language.
Well, and the difference between this and a lot of what people talk about when they're using intentions, because a lot of intentions are about trying to attach to something that you're not currently attached to against your energy. So, you know, when you decide to make a change and you go, okay, either I'm going to do this or I'm going to have this or you know, or I'm going to connect with this and feel this and be this, then you come up against the programs that are already there. This is different. This is actually about releasing the stuff that's already there. And so it's about emptying the cup before you pour something new into it. And
that's just brilliant. And I think that's exactly what we're trying to create with this event. And I'm so looking forward to your session. And it's funny how things work out, because when Jaqui and I, we were kind of thinking about the running order of the day, and Jacqui's clearing that ancestral stuff, which is her specialism, her zone of genius, the family beliefs and the family patterns. And then and for you, Steve, it was I loved how you called it releasing the BS. So tell us about the BS.
Well, BS is belief systems, of course, but it's also BS, the classic definition of BS.
Yeah, it really is.
It is, because it, we really get attached to this stuff, or it's attached to us, if you like. Byron Katie says, it lets go of you. And I think that's how it feels sometimes, is that, like you are, it's like something has got you and you can't kind of shake it or get out of it or whatever. And this is where tapping really helps with this, because it's a body manifestation. It's not just in the mind. We think it's in the mind because, we have the thought, and it seems like the thought causes the feeling. But it's actually that if there is no feeling, then the thought has no power. And anyway, so it's great to be able to release that. And so we're going to have Jaqui doing the releasing of the family patterns and the ancestral stuff. I'm looking forward to seeing that, because that's at a good time in Perth time. And then, that's the earliest program. And so I'll be looking forward to seeing what Jaqui is doing. And then my session on intention tapping and using that to release whatever beliefs, basically, that are currently you are attached to or have attached themselves to you through whatever process. Whether you had like a father like that said, this is going to be terrible, and then you accepted that and attached to that, and then it influences your whole day, or it influences your life, and then you come in, and that's when you're going to
I like to use a lot of gardening analogies in my work. So I'm all about the big vision, planting the seeds of that vision. But, as any good gardener will know, before you can do any kind of planting, you've got to prepare the ground, you've got to prepare the soil, you getting rid of the weeds and the stones. And I think that's the work that you and Jaqui, because there's no point, planting seeds when all the weeds are still there and the stones are still there. We want nice, fertile, prepared soil for it, don't we?
That's right.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing, is that sometimes we try and push things in when really we need to release some stuff first. And then there's an opening. And when there's an opening, that's when you can start to go, okay, I've cleared enough space now. I can start to see that there might be some new possibilities. And that's when, you come in with your vision work. And I'm really excited to see how you do that, because I know that you do that, but I haven't seen what you do. So that's going to be good.
And I'm looking forward to seeing you in action as well, Steve. It's going to be great. And then after me, just quick recap of the day, Tamara is going to be grounding, and because I love, to get people to think big, dream big, but then we've got to ground that vision, because we can just literally, and we've got to ground that, and then Andy, another EFT founding master, he's going to be talk about tapping and the art of receiving as well, because that's the thing. I think a lot of us, we block that good from coming our way because we just don't know how to receive. And
I know for Andy, that's something that he's really, really, spent a lifetime on. And so he really knows a lot about that stuff. Yeah.
So I'm really looking forward to all the sessions. I cannot wait. And finally, our good friend Brad, do you think, it might be a bit late for you by that time, Steve?
I'm not sure I will still be awake, but Brad and I have done so much stuff together. I'm pretty confident that I know the flavor of what he'll do, but I'm definitely going to watch it through, because there's always good value. And that's the thing about this, is because it's going to be recorded, everybody will be able to watch it and review it as many times as they want. So
exactly. And I think more depth and more will be revealed as people do the process. And yes, because you do get the recordings, that I think this will be stuff that people will revisit time and time again. And of course there's lots of great bonuses that we've all kind of contributed to this event, which I think will even deepen the practice even more. and I'm not just saying this because it was kind of my idea, but I think what's kind of come about has really, if I were to attend a personal development event, this would be it. And I'm not just saying that.
Well, and that's what I like to organise too, is like, okay, you know, what would I love to do? Let's do that. And so it's so fantastic for me to be getting together with really good people and doing a program which fits together, that people can do. It's a day of tapping, which a lot of people won't make time to do a day of tapping, you know, but they have the opportunity to do that. It's going to take you through a process of, you know, releasing a whole bunch of past stuff, family stuff, and, you know, and stuff that's affecting you right now, and then opening up to new possibilities, creating the vision, and, you know, and grounding that vision, and then, you know, opening up to be able to receive. And Brad's stuff on abundance, which is, you know, something he's been teaching for quite a long time, and knows a lot about. It's on the 31st of July. I don't know whether we mentioned that for anybody.
Oh yes, so not long, 31st of July. I think we kind of, it's always a struggle with time zones when you're creating an international event, but I think luckily for me, I'm kind of in the middle of the time zones, and Jaqui and 4 of us are in the UK. And I think it is, I know I've certainly woken up early to attend things for, and I've gone late into the night for my personal development. It's one day, you know, have a lie-in on the Sunday. It's going to be really transformational, I think, for those who attend. Really looking forward to it.
So for anybody who's looking for the information, I'm sure if you're on YouTube, you can read down below and you can find the information about the event. If it's on our sites or on our Facebook.
Above or below, it will be somewhere.
Okay, the link will be around this video somewhere. So,
you'll find it.
It's going to be a great thing. And I'm really looking forward to seeing how it unfolds. And just really hearing how people use it. Because to me, it's, you know, it's stuff that you can use that you really want to go for. And so this is an opportunity to get together with 6 top world tappers and do some tapping.
All with different styles, and that we can just show you that you can, you know, find, I know Jaqui just likes to do it there. You know, you do, you know, there's nail bed stuff
as well.
So many different ways, and there is lots of people like rules and, you know, how to's, but actually come to this event, you'll see there are no rules, and you can use it in a way that feels right for you. So yeah,
and I always say the best way of using tapping is the way that works for you, because ultimately there are a lot of tapping approaches that work, and the thing that they have in common is basically just doing the tapping. So let's do it.
So come and join us. Come and join us. Yeah. Thank you, Steve. It's been really lovely talking to you today and understanding more about your work and you know, your background as well.
Thank you. Thank you for joining me. And I look forward to working together with you in this event. And thanks for bringing everyone together, because you're the one who had the vision in the first place to do this. So yeah, good stuff.
It's all meant to be. Take care. Thanks, Steve.
All right. Cheers.